The seventh module of this course delves into the relationship between social behavior and culture, while also touching upon humor in a world enamored by political correctness. The first source of the module, of Headhunters and Soldiers, authored by Renato Rosaldo, first examines the acceptance of relativism, specifically cultural relativism, with the idea that human differences are derived from culture. Rosaldo cites prominent anthropologist Ruth Benedict's proposal that culture is, or at least used to be, self-contained, autonomous, separate but equal, and making sense in its own context. He then, however, contests a different anthropologist, Clyde Cluckhorn's notion that morality is universal as all cultures have moral systems. Rosaldo's objection is that the anonymity of these cultural moral systems prevent Cluckhorn's claim from gaining any true implication. Rosaldo instead champions Clifford Greetz's notion that humans are unfinished animals, as we learn almost all our knowledge after birth, and therefore we learn all our knowledge from cultures we grow up in. Liz Donnelly's following source, Drawing Humor for Change, shies away from broad sweeping anthropologic propositions and instead explores the ways in which humor has helped her deal with womanhood and femininity as a cartoonist. Donnelly suggests that culture modifies and corrects the rules of being a woman. Humor, which is built on the idea of taking culture or tradition and mocking it, therefore possesses the ability to alter these rules to be more flexible. The next source, an interview with Slovenian philosopher Slavoj Zizek, exhibits the ways in which political correctness can actually hinder progressive discussion. Zizek proposes that if we are so concerned with political correctness, we simply refrain or veer away from conversations that might be headed in controversial directions. These safety walls we put up suppress dialogue and don't ultimately lead to any productive conversation, as the dialogue itself is hindered. The former President of the United States, Barack Obama, ultimately agrees with Zizek's idea, as the following source displays a clip from one of his speeches denouncing those who silence people who they disagree with or find offensive, and instead he encourages them to debate these people instead. Finally, Sally Cohn, a progressive lesbian talking head on Fox News as she describes herself, in her TED Talk, Let's Try Emotional Correctness, proposes exactly that in place of political correctness. She explains emotional correctness to be the tone or the way in which we say something with respect, and she alleges that it is this emotional correctness, not political correctness, that gets people to listen, presenting her coworker Sean Hannity as an example. Just before lunch today at work, the opportunity presented itself to ask 4 of my colleagues to recount some of their favorite local British jokes. Although none of them could call back to a specific joke at the time, they began listing specific British comedians and sketches, and before I knew it, we had gathered around my computer to watch a couple. This first clip is from the sitcom Only Fools Have Horses, and the gag is quite simple. A couple of trotters are directed to remove some priceless chandeliers, and the inevitable ends up happening. One of the other clips my coworkers directed me to was from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, a true testament of globalization if you ask me, as I have seen the movie many times back home in the States before coming to the United Kingdom. In this particular scene, King Arthur, dressed in white, must fight the Black Knight in order to pass him by.
Now stand aside, worthy adversary.
'Tis but a scratch.
A scratch? Your arm's off.
No, it isn't.
Well, what's that then?
I've heard worse.
You liar!
Come on, you pansy!
From these 2 videos alone, you get a feel for how pessimistic and dark British humor truly is. The laughs in these scenes are driven entirely by the misery or failure of a character. Additionally, the clips I were directed to by my colleagues were all older skits dating back to the 80s. Perhaps this is because my coworkers are all a bit older than me, but I believe the more likely reason for this is that modern British humor is very much aligned with or become one with American humor. Not only has actual British comedy taken hold in the US, with the likes of Mr. Bean, The Office, and John Oliver, but even late-night comedians have grown much more pessimistic, especially in this Trumpian era. I believe this ties in well to Zizek's caution of political correctness, as well as Cohen's emotional correctness. To ensure people will listen to them every night, late-night hosts like Stephen Colbert and Trevor Noah must enact emotional correctness to carry themselves in a polite manner. However, it is when they disregard their political correctness, bashing the president for something, and showing their true colors, that they get the most views on YouTube and subsequently have morning talk shows discussing the controversial topic the next day.